Keir Starmer sold the young English women of Britain out to the Pakistanis for votes. As an extra, he tried to include his soul in the trade. The Pakistanis laughed and told him to keep it. This is the darkest and most depraved episode in English history.
I'm sorry I'm not able to join you, but I want to give a special thanks to the APPG on British Muslims for the brilliant work that you do to highlight issues affecting British Muslims and celebrate their achievements. Your work on the definition of Islamophobia has been exemplary. As leader of the Labour Party, I am utterly committed to eradicating Islamophobia from my party and from society.
Councils where young white girls were groomed and raped by British Pakistani men have endorsed a definition of Islamophobia that brands the phrase Asian grooming gangs as racist. Oxford, Newcastle, Manchester and Calderdale are 4 areas where the local councils have adopted a report that critics claim will silence whistleblowers trying to speak out against child abuse. The report cautioned the phrase Asian grooming gangs was a modern repetition of age-old stereotypes and tropes about Islam, of sexual profligacy and paedophilia, or Islam and violence, claiming that they heighten the vulnerability of Muslims to hate crimes.
In the towns where this is a problem, and we found over 50 different towns and cities, there are many towns that have been found in official reports backed up by Louise Casey last month, where fears of accusations of racism did prevent investigation. I am highly confident that that is still going on, and I do think that this Islamophobia definition, if it was brought in the way it's already been concocted, then it would add to that ammunition being used by people who would like to chill those discussions.
In Telford for decades, up to 1,000 girls had been reported to have been abused by grooming gangs since the 1980s, or those that had no idea that it could potentially still be going on, and the scale of police, council and social services failings. I went back home, I went back to Telford, and the next day around lunchtime 2 police officers banged on my door demanding that I speak to them about my interview.
So the police who have done nothing for the entire 3rd millennium to date suddenly were roused to activity by you going on television.
Yeah, they told me that they had gone round to all of the addresses they had on file for me. They had gone to my previous home addresses, the different accommodations that I'd stayed at looking for me, and eventually they located me, they hunted me down, they tracked me, banged on my door, not too different to when they're knocking on the door of a perpetrator, of a potential criminal. I was on FaceTime to my friend at the time, who said to me afterwards, I genuinely thought you were going to get arrested from the way that they were talking to you. They told me that, quote unquote, when you go on GB News and talk about grooming gangs in Telford, it's our duty to follow up with you. I said to them at the time, it was funny that they did absolutely nothing to bring my accusers to justice, but when I went on national TV, my abusers to justice, but when I went on national TV and talked about the industrial scale of their failings and their inaction in bringing to justice the perpetrators of vile rape, grooming, sexual assault and child sex crimes in Telford, that they are suddenly spurred into action to come and knock on my door and intimidate me into silence. To police officers from the CSE team that knocked on my door, they said they had been working for the force for a year and 6 months respectively, and they were, quote unquote, trying to make a difference. I don't know what difference they were making by going after a victim rather than the perpetrators, those that have been systematically raping, abusing, grooming and passing girls round.
The testimony of a Pakistani Muslim grooming gang survivor has been censored under the new Online Safety Act guidelines. Shame on Labour, shame on Starmer, shame on all of them.
Free speech for a very, very long time in the United Kingdom, and it will last for a very, very long time. Well, no, I mean, certainly we wouldn't want to reach across US citizens, and we don't, and that's absolutely right. But in relation to free speech in the UK, I'm very proud of our history there.
About in Scotland a few weeks ago, we still have 12,000 people a year here being arrested for social media posts, for free speech violations. Does that not remain an important area that there is still a lot of disagreement on?
I'd like to have you answer that.
And on free speech, that has long lived in this country, free speech. It's one of the founding values of the United Kingdom, and we protect it jealously. and fiercely, and always will. And we will bear down on any limits on free speech. I draw a limit between free speech and the speech of those that want to peddle paedophilia and suicide social media to children.
Is freedom of speech dead in this country?
I'm not across the details of the particular case, but let me give you the principles that I would apply. Firstly, I'm strongly in favour of free speech. We've had free speech in this country for a very, very long time, and we protect it fiercely. I'm equally, though, against incitement to violence against other people. That has long been an offence in our country, and rightly so. And so I say, don't know the details of this case, but free speech, yes. Incitement to violence, no. Disgraceful. It's disgusting. And it's not to be tolerated. X has got to get a grip of this. And Ofcom have at full support to take action in relation to this. This is wrong. It's unlawful. We're not going to tolerate it. I've asked for all options to be on the table. It's disgusting. And X need to get their act together, and we will take action on this because it's simply not tolerable.
On the left is a Muslim man who sexually assaulted 3 women at a hotel spa. No jail. On the right is a white woman who posts a bad tweet. 2 years in jail. Left, David Morgan, jailed for 20 months over X posts. Right, Hamoud al-Soleimani, blanked a child and got a suspended sentence. On the left, white man starts Telegram channel, 7 years in jail. On the right, Islamic preacher blanks girl, no jail time. Wayne O'Rourke, sent to prison for 3 years for writing words and opinions on social media. Pakistani foreign national, given 3 years for blanking a girl.
English culture activist Tommy Robinson was arrested. He's a co-founder of the English Defence League, and he was arrested May 25th outside the Leeds Crown Court. Robinson was charged with breaching the peace and incitement roughly 1 hour into his Facebook live streaming outside the trial of members of a Muslim gang accused of grooming children.
I've been arrested for breach of the peace. I've been arrested for breach of the peace. You've all watched this. You've all watched this. You've all watched this. You've all watched this. Can you get me a solicitor? Can you get me a solicitor?
Can you just turn off your live feed?
Can you get me a solicitor?
Turn off your live feed, please.
Yeah? Do you understand what I've just said? No, can you explain it again?
Not at all, I never said that.
George, that's the information I've got. I'm inciting people. I'm inciting people.
With video
How have I incited people? This is free speech. This is where we're at.
On the EDL website, it lists more than 150 trials where Muslim immigrants or Muslim gangs were convicted of grooming. The judge overseeing the trial Robinson was covering as a citizen journalist banned media coverage. When he was sentenced to 13 months in prison for the live streaming outside the courthouse, Judge Heather Norton said it was not about free speech or the free press.
Not only did they lock up Tommy Robinson as a political prisoner for free speech, they targeted this heroic female politician named Suela Braverman for daring to speak the truth.
Is a practice whereby vulnerable white English girls, sometimes in care, sometimes who are in challenging circumstances, being pursued and raped and drugged and harmed by gangs of British Pakistani men who've worked in child abuse rings or networks. We've seen institutions and state agencies, whether it's social workers, teachers, the police, turn a blind eye to these signs of abuse out of political correctness, out of fear of being called racist, out of fear of being called bigoted. And as a result, thousands, we're not talking small numbers, we're talking large numbers, thousands of children have had their childhoods robbed and devastated. And there are many of these perpetrators still running wild.
Suela Braverman, UK Pakistani grooming gang claim misleading, says press regulator. The Independent Press Standards Organization, IPSO, instructed the Mail on Sunday to publish a correction to an opinion piece written by Suela Braverman in April. The correction now links the claim to high-profile cases like Rotherham. A source close to Mrs. Braverman called the IPSO ruling perverse. The source told the BBC the Home Secretary referred to the Mail on Sunday MOS article to the grooming gangs phenomenon such as the high-profile cases in Rochdale. Independent reports found that British Pakistani men predominated among the perpetrators. She did not refer to all group-based child sexual abuse. It's a perverse decision that requires a willful misreading of the piece and is clearly a political attack, co-opting IPSO from the Muslim Council of Britain, the source said. The complaint was brought by the Centre for Media Monitoring, part of the Muslim Council of Britain, which campaigns for fair and accurate and responsible reporting of Islam and Muslims. In the original article, Ms. Braverman described the systemic blank abuse and exploitation of young girls by organized gangs of older men and the failure of people in authority to act as a stain on our country. She focused initially on the Rotherham abuse scandal, but went on to assert that perpetrators behind the grooming gang phenomenon were groups of men, almost all British Pakistani, who hold cultural attitudes completely incompatible with British values. They have been left mostly unchallenged, both within their communities and by wider society, despite their activities being an open secret. Many of them have gone unpunished and remain at large. Variety of ethnicities. IPSO concluded that a direct link between identified ethnic group and a particular form of offending was misleading, where it was not made clear that this was referred specifically to the abuse scandals in Rotherham, Rochdale, and Telford. IPSO said the newspaper have offered, 4 days after the publication, to clarify that perpetrators of child sexual abuse more broadly are a variety of ethnicities. But the complainant argued that any clarification should make clear the Home Office research published in 2020 that found a group-based child sexual offenders were mainly white.
The national data that we collect, as in the police collect on behalf of the Home Office, is partial. We get 34% completion rate of ethnicity. And then what I started to realise is that then that data is used to say that it's 88% white. And this is being repeated now. So I go back to the 2020 report produced by the Home Office. And in that report, and I've looked at the run up to it and the after of it, they do a very similar thing, which is they say there's all of these issues of ethnicity, we must look at them carefully, but overall, on balance, child sexual exploitation is essentially primarily a white issue. And then I look at, I can't get national data because why? It's too difficult for you to collect it. So then you end up look like you're covering up.
Was there deliberate covering up?
I think in Rotherham there was deliberate covering up. Yes, I can speak to that one in a very detailed way because I was there for 6 months. We did the inspection and I saw it was the night in the inspection room where I was going through a child's file and I realised somebody had Tipexed out the word Pakistani, literally Tipex. People watching the programme may not even know what that is, but it's where you cover up a word.